Check myself.
Oh, recording. All right. She was serious. She was okay. Elana, welcome to Art, Life, and Social Practice. This online environment. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm pretty good. Let me take off my glasses because of the glare. Okay. So, Elana, where do we start?
Sorry. Hold on. My computer's being a little weird.
You're funny. So I do these as just more like a conversation. Just we're not, it's not about bringing out facts, it's not about bringing out accomplishments. It's about a flow of how we relate to each other, how we relate to our art, to our practice. I find that it works better.
Okay, so a flow of conversation. I mean, let's start with you actually. So you're like the first artist I've met. And so I've had art teachers, sure, and they're professional artists, but you were the first reflection of myself that I had seen. And so when I went to your solo show after Howard, I was maybe like 18, 17. I was in that age range, and you were the first professional art show I had seen up to that moment. And so it was really interesting to like kind of see how our relationship has developed over the past, I mean, it hasn't been 15 years, right? Long time.
Wow. I don't know. I don't do math in that way. That's so awful. So how long is that? And we don't have to quantify. We don't have to like literally say the amount of time. It feels like a good amount of time. And I say that in the sense where I'm glad that it was the amount of time that it was, because it's given us time to morph into where we are now. And I'm enjoying that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I think it's nice. Oh, continue. I'm sorry.
Oh, good.
I was gonna say, I think what's nice about our relationship is now you get to experience me as an adult. And so now we have like this adult relationship in a way that we didn't have when it was very much like young person.
Oh God, I didn't do that, did I?
No, but it is a different energy. Like I feel more so like you're equal now than I had in the past. Like there was more of a mentorship role. And now we're kind of, I mean, I'm hoping to move in the same arenas. I wouldn't say that, but we are like coming to a place where I'm starting to enter some of those spaces that you've like made a home in, you know?
And that's exciting. Yeah. So, Elana, how did art make an impact on you early in your life?
I think when I was younger, I wanted to be a psychologist. And so I went to Duke Ellington School of the Arts. I walked up to the schools. I can't get in here. Blue ribbon school.
It's a who?
It's a blue ribbon school.
Oh,
I was like 13 thinking, I can't do this. So I applied anyway, because it was either Duke or Anacostia. So, and so I applied and I got in. And it wasn't until my 11th grade year where they chose students to go to Anderson's Ranch, which is an artist residency in Colorado. So that was my first artist residency. Like I was chosen to go, and there I saw Wangechi Mutu, I saw Gary Simmons, and I got to experience like an artist colony for like a week. It was all expense paid, like they decked this out. And when I returned, that was the first time I ever gotten on a plane. So I was like in the 11th grade, never flew before, never really been off of the East Coast. And I got to see like a whole new way of existing. Mm-hmm. And that was the turning point for me, because up to that point, I was like, I'm gonna just go to a regular college, do regular college things. And then I was like, well, maybe I can be an artist. Like I was making work I was proud of and I was excited about. And that was the turning point for me.
So you mentioned your interest in psychology. What was that about?
So I was interested in psychology because I was really interested in like human nature and like how people are and how to navigate them. I'm a
Mhm.
little socially awkward sometimes. So I was
That's
like,
not
how can I like
socially
study?
awkward. I absolutely have that thread in me. Like when I wonder, like when people say that their work says nothing about them or that it's not connected, I'm like, you're okay.
It always is. It's
It
always connected.
always is. And it says so much. This might sound like not hypocritical, but like it just, to me, it's like I don't understand how they can really think that, like that it's not a part or a reflection of them. It's weird to me. And it says something about their level of that person's, to me, in my opinion, it says something about their insight.
Hmm. I agree because even if you don't make art about yourself, you're making art about like your mindset, like your personality, your interests, your quirks, even just your physical sensibilities makes it art about you.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
so
so
art is fascinating because it's like this broad genre because art is just the material and the energy and the essence, right?
mm-hmm.
But you're bringing you into all of that. So you're bringing you into like the material, what you're making.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so but did you do work before because you drew and you did comics and all that. You did that earlier than Duke Ellington, correct?
Correct. So I was in middle school. I also had like a short stint as a writer,
Yes.
fiction writer. So that was fun. In middle school, I'd draw comics. I'd actually write them and then like put them on the internet. And people liked it. It was crazy. But yeah, so I made like these little comics. I have one right here.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, I just happen to have one on my wall. So I'm gonna take it down. I draw them sometimes, mostly when I journal. It's like a
That's funny.
so this is what I used to look like. I don't anymore though. I'm different now. So this is like my first year at Ellington, this little picture. As a teacher, and I invited my students to draw little versions of themselves too. And they posted them as sticky notes on the door. It was really cute.
So I remember correctly. I'm afraid to ask you what they were about.
Oh, I
The
can tell you. It's
okay.
like my inner conscience. So
Okay.
they're about whatever I'm thinking. If you imagine them as like writing, if I'm writing out my thoughts, they're acting them. So they're a visualization of my thoughts in my inner spirit and my inner energy. So I think if I ever wanted to kind of get deeper into like how I'm feeling or what I'm going through, then I can make like a comic about it. And I was making them on Instagram for a little bit, like as early, not as early, as late as last year.
Yeah.
And they were kind of fun because I was exploring like ancestor veneration and how like when you do that, you're supposed to give food to your ancestors, but all of them, they eat stuff like chitlins and chicken and mashed potatoes, stuff like that. And I don't eat that. So there's this internal conflict about like they probably wouldn't like my food because it's all
Mm,
vegetables and
mm.
veganish. And it was funny, I would be cooking and I'm like, oh, maybe they might like this. So it's kind of an interesting conversation I'd have with myself. And it turned into a comic. And so I personified them as a candle. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like this cute candle thing. If I can like draw it real quick. So it's like this cute candle thing. It looks like this, roughly.
There's a part of me that wants you to reconsider how I see. Wants you to reconsider, because if your ancestors, the way that I would think of ancestors, I would encourage you not to think that they would not appreciate what you give them and
Ooh.
what you're giving yourself. They're your ancestors.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be there for you. So maybe consider just them being there for you, period.
Hmm. except for like the weird ones. You know, all ancestors.
Yeah, no, kick the
People,
weird
thank
ones
you.
out. We don't want them. Whatever their weirdness is, that's on them.
Yes.
I hear you. Because we got to do that in real life. So absolutely. But yeah, but you see what I'm saying? So
I see
don't.
what you're saying though, right? Like not internalizing the whole, like, they probably wouldn't like this as vegan, vegetarian, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, the vegetables be hidden. They be
They absolutely, yes, they
They be
do.
liking the vegetables.
You're talking about an exchange that happens on a like beyond a metaphysical level or in a metaphysical. So they're just going, to me, in my mind, I'm thinking they're just going to be happy that you are in contact with them. You are in present mode with them, past, present, future. They're not going to be, and if you're doing more to uplift and nurture yourself, therefore elongating their energy, their ancestral energy, their DNA, they ain't gonna care. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I like that perspective.
Cool. All right, so let's travel. So you then, when you left Duke Ellington, and how did your work progress as you went through Duke Ellington?
It's on the wall back there.
Let's see. You can show us if you want.
I can like take you. Okay, let's see.
Yeah, take us along.
It's a journey. So this is my senior series. You can see it.
Oh, I was wondering. Okay, wow.
You see me? I'm like I'm torn.
Where, in the bottom left?
Yeah, that's me.
Can you zoom in on it? I'm acting like this is a camera. Because you're literally picking up your
holding my laptop. Yeah.
Yes. Neat.
So that's me, and these are all my classmates. And I actually got out of a drawing class with these on the college level. I scored really high on my AP portfolio.
Nice. Okay. I didn't realize that you did portraiture in that way, where it's and I guess it makes sense. Okay, so that's thesis. Then what?
And then I went abstract. So also I don't have my abstractions here, but I used to do.
Are they on your website?
No, but I have like a whole artist talk that I did for my kids where I showed them the whole journey. So I could pull that up. If you don't mind me sharing my screen, so I can
see if it already allows you to do so.
Okay.
If not, it means I gotta figure out again how to do it.
Okay, so let me see if I can find it for you, because this is kind of related. The way I got back to being at Ellington as a teacher was I like emailed Mr. E and was like, hey man, I want to do an artist talk for the kids. I have a lot of information post-graduating. I think that'd be useful for them. And he was like, sure. Here we go. Professional practice artist talk. Let me go to, oh yeah, I have like all my student work up here. So let me share, go to Zoom. Share screen. Okay, yeah, so it's disabled. So you have to give me permission to share.
Okay, so participants, no. Do you remember where that is in the captions, reactions? I want to say that it's security, share screen, allow participants to share screen. Yes. You should be able to do it now.
So here you go. So this is my student work from high school. Let me see if I can make it big for you.
So show us the abstraction.
Okay. So this is what my work looked like in high school. You over there. And so I made these geometric abstracts that I were really excited about. And I did a whole body of work. So these pieces, the portraits, that was my AP portfolio. So those were my AP submissions. And then this was my senior series. So my senior series were these abstract pieces that I like collaged over and made into like these prints. So I was really
What
heavy.
technique is this?
Printmaking. I was super heavy into printmaking. I loved printmaking so much. It was my favorite thing to do. So it's kind of
Like,
cool to return back to it with like the buckets in a way, like that same carving energy.
Okay. Ooh. Do you have it? What are those heads?
Yeah, their faces. So I
It's
took a
kind of
bunch of
blurry. Good
strips.
Lord, is it my glass? Do I need my glasses, or is those
No, it's not
really
you,
blurry?
it's
Okay,
me.
I'm just saying.
So these pictures are like super old.
Okay.
My mom took these. I grabbed these off of Facebook.
Got it.
So that wasn't a great picture, but this is in Janetta B. Cole's collection. So that's cool.
Oh, nice. So walk me through these. What were you thinking about? Especially these, the ones like 9.
So this one?
Slide 9, yeah.
So these are also my doodles. So I do these guys, the candle, but then I also do this. And so I don't know if I have an example on my desk, but it's just how my brain works. So when I'm like taking a test or I'm like just kind of vibing, I have like these abstract doodles that I also do where I'm like creating these kind of mandalas and like sacred geometry and stuff like that. So it's a meditation. It's how I like function and exist and vibe. And so you see this in some variation in my early work, which was kind of how I was able to make the transition from this to like the Alma Thomas aesthetic, because it was pretty similar, and even like the Jeff Donaldson vibes. It was just a matter of me taking this geometric abstract and being like, throw a head on it. So that's what happened.
So, excuse me, tell me, in relationship to you're in now teaching at Duke Ellington, how did that experience of shifting into literally teaching at the institution where you graduated from, how did that affect your work, your practice?
It made me a better painter. I immediately practiced more. I had like my mentors to jump off like thought wise. I would have to come in, look at pieces. Like if I can like find it. Oh, this is me. Oh, I don't know. I guess I'm skipping ahead because I'm trying to find it for you. So if I can find like, this is how I painted when I first started.
I remember these.
And then I had been working there a few years when I started making work, like trying to find a good example. This was pretty good. When I started making work like this, and even like my newer pieces, like the one of my dad. Let's see, I'm gonna go on Instagram to see if I can, well, so maybe I can't do that right now. But like if you were ever to reference my Instagram, there are like some pieces I'm making right now that are like, oh, like you've really taken what you've learned from teaching here and working with like professional young artists, but also like your mentors, and expanded on your skill set. Like I would talk to my kids. I started using more texture in my work, particularly with this piece. Let's see if I can zoom in. No, it zooms out. So if we look at like this leaf situation, one of my students was like, Miss Casey, you should add texture to that. And I was like, okay. And I did, and it panned out. And so I like took a squeeze, I like kind of cake battered some acrylic paint onto it. So it was cake icing. So like my work here is really informed in my work, because even digital, like my digital art practice was from my students being like, I was like, I want to go digital. What do I do? And they're like, hey, get an iPad, get an Apple Pencil, get Procreate. And I was like, okay, cool. So it's working here, depending on the grade, really informs what I'm making. Like, so I was working on my skill set the first year. I was working on maybe skill set first year, and second year. Third year, I got digital. Fourth year, I started printmaking again. This year, I'm doing a lot of carving, a lot of planning. So I'm in my kids are doing a sustained investigation for their AP portfolio, which means they have to track everything they're doing and take process photos and think and research. And so this year, along with the carvings and the sculptural part of my process, which is a little different, I'm doing way more research as I prep for like my next solo show. So yeah.
I want you to lead us into a conversation about what your work, what is your narrative? How has it, where did it start from? You kind of give us an idea of where it started from in relationship to you working through your interest in psychology and seeing how to relate your inner dialogue into a discourse, a visual discourse. At least that's how I'm interpreting it, right? And then you've linked like your doodling, your abstract doodling and your more figurative doodling to like your connection to consciousness, right? So then how did that evolve into some of the earlier versions of your narratives around spiritual system, Black spiritual systems, and like the retelling of mythical stories?
That's a great question. You're so good at this. So when I was an undergrad, I felt less than human. That was my first time being in a predominantly white institution. And so my abstractions no longer saved me in a way that they used to. Like, there was something about being in predominantly Black spaces that made me feel safe. And so I felt safe enough to do these. I felt safe enough to make these geometric abstracts. Like, I felt really, those are like my safe art, if that makes sense. That's the work I make for myself. And up to undergrad, I felt like I could make them. I felt like I couldn't make them anymore because I was no longer safe. I think you refer to it as like big Elanas, right? So I have like these.
I remember these conversations.
Yeah, they're like, these are like bigger versions of these little yous. Like, you're literally making yourself like larger than life. So if you imagine, because the way I imagine it is I took like these little characters, I just hold it up, but I took like these little characters and put them in like an Iron Man armor. What does it look like to like have them be like kind of, I don't want to say militarized, but just like they're protecting themselves. And what is the framework for protection? So I had to do research. Research looked like me reading bell hooks, me reading Audre Lorde. Like, I really delve into like Black literature to find the answers. And I slowly kind of moved away from this stuff. Like, that's when I first entered undergrad, and I kind of was like, okay, I can still do me a little bit. I can still do abstract stuff. Where
did you go to undergrad, and why did you choose that school?
I chose it. I don't want to slander them, but I guess they can see it on my resume where I went.
I was gonna say it's out there, but it's in this context, it's still up to you if you don't want to share. But I think sometimes the conversation about how you worked through something that was hard is important.
So I went to the Corcoran School of Art and Design, George Washington University. And what happened was that I didn't feel like, again, I'm coming out of Ellington, all Black space. Up to this point, I've only really seen Black people everywhere. Like, white people are just kind of mythical creatures to me up to this point. So I have no idea what a microaggression is.
And to contextualize a little bit, you were living in Anacostia, in Southeast Washington, D.C. So you literally lived amongst
Black people.
Yep.
Only, right?
Yeah.
Like up to middle school, going uptown was this special thing. Like I went to the dock, going to Kaiser was like, oh, I'm in a different part in the universe. Like, so I had like this different understanding of me in place, right?
Yeah.
And so then I leave like even Duke, predominantly Black institution, like all Black people. There's like 2 white kids in the whole school. You know what I mean? So leaving that space and being the only Black person in every room and becoming the Black representative, and like people assuming I'm not intelligent because I have an accent, or you're so articulate or whatever, right? These microaggressions, sometimes larger aggressions of like oppression. It was incredibly traumatic, to say the least. And
Yeah.
so when I started, so I had to change my whole understanding of myself. And I was like, so if I'm seen as subhuman, which is a new feeling for me, I never, like up to this point, I'm not like a Black person. I'm Elana, who is also Black. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like this big part of, it's not what people see when they see me. They just see me as a person because we're all Black, you know?
Yes, and I need you. There's that word is I hate. I hate that word.
Oh,
And
Black?
no, subhuman.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna need you not to refer to yourself like that, or any Black person of color. Is that if that's what is in someone else's mind, allow that to be in someone else's mind.
I was just saying that's how they viewed me. At least that's how I felt they viewed me. And so I'm navigating space like this. And I had to think about, well, if I'm in an art setting, what does it look like for me to exist in power? And at that time I was taking art history. I took AP art history before, but we're taking art history my first year. And I'm hyper cognizant of iconography, Christian iconography. And I was like, well, what's bigger than God's? Nothing. And so what does it look like for me to now personify myself as godly and to kind of start this journey into this iconography and digging? And I got some pushback for that too. That's not your stuff. You're uninformed. It was all that stuff.
They said what? That's not
you're
your
like,
stuff?
you're, yes. So they were like, you're not even Catholic. You can't even,
Woo!
undergrad was
You're not even Catholic. And so Catholicism is the only way to access God and spirituality and or religion.
I know, it was.
Oh, that's a hot ass mess.
So it's the whole thing. And so I'm like making these portraits of people up to this point, making portraits of people, halos. But then things got really rough. And I had to think about, how do I display my wounds? Can I still be powerful and wounded? And what does that look like? So then I came here and I thought about, like, textually, what do these wounds look like? And what is scarification's role in power dynamics? Because you go to Africa, scarification is identifiers, right? But then you come here, it is an identifier, but not in the best way. Like, it's literally welts of like being beaten and harmed. And so I started to, like, because if you're like whipped, you have like welts like these. And so I was like really going through a lot. It was a very painful process to be an undergrad, very traumatic. And my work reflected that. So I was making works that had like these very like textural, like thick bodied, pained images. And then it was kind of around the end. I was moving away. This is like the end of like my senior year. And with the Black and white pieces, I was exploring like literally Black and white spaces. Like, who am I when I'm in a Black space? still godly, but I'm not racialized. So I'm in black and white. I'm just a refraction of light. Then I enter these white spaces and I'm in color. Like my blackness is on display. Like you literally see me. I get out of that space. This is my dad. I get out of that space and everything's gold. And in a way, I've healed a lot. I've decided that my godliness, it doesn't matter if whether this white space, black space, whatever, we're in the gold spaces now. We're just like dope in general. And I made a bunch of pieces of me in gold. People I know in gold. My safe art came back. And so I was able to like kind of take, I think, the pain of being in those spaces and put that kind of safeness back to it when we talk about like those geometric abstracts and like how I was existing. So it was all there. And I was changed from that experience, but I was healing. I was coming back to myself, and I had to acknowledge that even though that happened and that experience was that experience, it also helped me to make the work I make today, which is really dope. So yeah.
So how does your degree from the Corcoran is what, in painting?
Yeah, so I have a bachelor's of fine art in painting, and then I have like 100 million credits for my master's in arts teaching. So I have all the credits. I just haven't written my thesis because they wanted to charge me an extra $50,000 for a degree that's not terminal.
Shut up.
Yes, so if I can get it funded, I'll go write the thesis. But the issue with the thesis, I was writing it, actually started it and everything, getting it approved, the whole thing, right? And I realized I didn't want to write it anymore because the thesis was basically like, how can you make your curriculum more inclusive? How can you include like Black folks and people of color, or everyone, into your curriculum? How do you make this a safe curriculum? And as I was writing it, I felt like I was trying to like, I'm in a meeting. Bye. And so you look so disappointed. And so I had to think about, why do I want to be accepted into their space? Why do I want to make them allow me at their space and at their table? Like I actually don't. And around this time, I'm working at Nation House. So if you want to contextualize this, I am oppressed Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. No, I'm oppressed Tuesday and Thursday. No, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then I'm Pan-African Tuesday and Thursday. So it's like a whole clusterfuck. For the lack of
For those that don't know, explain what Nation House is.
Nation House is a private African-centered school. So you're walking in, you're Black, like
located in Washington, D.C.
Yes, it's located in Washington, D.C. I think Northeast D.C. And it's not a homeschooling collective, but it's a very small school. And so their curriculum is African everything. If you would imagine that art history starts at the Haitian Revolution. Well, history in general starts at the Haitian Revolution and it goes to like current times. And it's including all these freedom fighters. It's including like just stuff that you don't learn in normal DC public school curriculum regarding Black history. And so you're getting this robust history. I'm their art teacher and they're like all Black everything. So I'm becoming this Black art historian, which is interesting. Like, I'm like, oh, we're doing art pieces on Eric Douglas, Oma Thomas, just people. And Romero Bearden.
I forgot to turn off my phone. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. So we're doing all these art stuff. We're doing all these like projects on all these different art historical figures and Faith Ringgold. You're making gree-grees. We're all Black everything all day. It was literally the only piece I had going from, I say oppression and I mean it. I don't want to go into details of what happened. It was not a fun experience. I mean it though. So you go from like being oppressed to like not being oppressed, not. So I literally went from like wearing all African clothes, like students super confident. I'm super confident. I'm learning about all the different African countries. I'm learning everything, all the different revolts. I'm like in classes like, wow, I'm learning too. It was such a blessing in a tumultuous time, and it informed how my figures looked. And even like some of the symbology, like the Ghanaian, like Adinkra symbols, the cowrie shells, like all that stuff that kind of entered into the work. Like we're on this Black and white piece right now, like the libation, all these things came from my experience there, where instead of looking at Christian iconography, it was an invitation to kind of explore all of the above. It was like, oh, you can bring in this aspect of spiritual systems, and then you can keep this too. And you can just kind of pile it on. So the work is just me piling on stuff from my life experiences.
So did you being at Nation House introduction to a further introduction to, like, for example, African spiritual systems, I know that it affected your artwork, but how did it affect you like individually, emotionally, in your own spiritual practice, and or did it?
It did. I think it saved me. Like, so I'm going to like African dance classes at this time. I'm experiencing a level of joy I've never experienced. I had like, again, I had never really considered my Blackness, because you're around everyone. Like, I've never been in Pan-African spaces up to now. And it felt like something I could be really proud of. And it wasn't that I wasn't proud of it before, it just wasn't something I thought about. And I was really excited to feel a sense of pride that made me feel safe and good.
Mm.
And then even like the spiritual systems, learning about them, the best way I could describe it was when you see She's Gotta Have It. I think it's her birthday, and the
Mhm.
whole film turns to color.
Mm.
So I
You
felt
talk about
like
the old version or the new version?
the old version.
Mm.
And so I felt like my life turned to color. I was living like this Black and white life and navigating and moving through it. And I don't think I had experienced joy like that before.
Mm.
And it changed the way I understood myself and how I understood my history and my practice.
Mm-hmm. And knowing you the way that I know you, I thought it also changed your relationship with your family,
Mm,
almost like your acceptance.
I like that because I think you're right. Because up to this point, you know, my family would be like, we're going to the country. I'm like, I don't want to go to the country. I guess he's my Uncle Louis, cousin Louis. I don't know. I don't know. But he was like, we're going to go pay some tobacco. I was like, bro, I am free.
No, you didn't. But you know, some of that also has to do with your age, with the age range.
Yeah.
Because in like the early 20s, you know, middle 20s, you begin, if you're lucky, if you're fortunate, and if your family, it makes sense for your family, your relationship with your family, you begin to realize like that you need them. And you begin to realize their value. And it doesn't mean that you're gonna like all of them, because you may never like all of them, because there's some family members, you know, that's a whole nother story.
Mhm.
But I think it's also part of the cycle. But I just remember feeling like that was a transition for you as well?
It was because like there's again this whole ancestral veneration part. So for me to venerate my ancestors, I had to talk to my family.
Yeah.
And my art practice, I think, helped me connect more with my family too. Like I became closer to my dad than I ever had because he's like transporting all these huge art pieces, helping me build them, all that stuff. It became like a little business we had that we just kind of go places. So if people know that I'm in a show, they're usually going to see him. He's usually there. It I think just me having an art practice kind of changed my relationship with my family for the better. Um, and the ancestor veneration did bring me closer to my family because they come from very humble beginnings. Like, so you know how like, I laughed because I thought about a conversation I had with someone, and I was like, "Yeah, my parents had like outhouses," and he was like, "In the 80s?" Which is interesting to kind of put into perspective that my parents are older than people my age parents are.
Yeah.
I mean, they are the age of people who would be in their 40s right now. To put it into perspective of normal like baby age. But yeah, so I'm kind of a younger person navigating a very old history in regards to like them farming and working the land. Like it was a literal, like my dad lived in the country, he lived on someone's land. Like I don't want to say a plantation because that's not quite true, but it's on a farm. There was like
Mm-hmm.
these groups, this like white folks, they like owned a farm, and my dad's family, his grandparents lived there, and they worked the land and they farmed tobacco, and that's what they were doing in like what the 1950s is gassing it. My dad was born in 56, so they were doing that. Probably those are his grandparents, so like 1930s 40s, they're like farming tobacco, they're like they have livestock,
And
they're
where was this?
in Virginia.
So your family's from Virginia?
My dad's from Virginia, my mom's from Maryland. So it
Hmm.
feels like such a long time ago when I describe it, because I'm like, that sounds really old, but that was a very recent history for my dad. He moved to DC when he was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like 6, 7, 8, 9, working on a farm.
Wow, that's pretty deep.
Yeah. And then that started to show up in my work now-ish.
So share some of your, or do you have some of your more recent works
I can go to my
in
website.
this slide, or we can go to your site.
Yeah, let me just go to my website. So do you want me to show like the works that are like the ancestor stuff, or
Um, it's up to you. I like you to talk about both. So
yeah,
that and the works, like your show at Mahari Square Gallery.
I guess we'll start here. It's one of my favorite pieces, the Chatham Boy on Horse.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I literally took this was me learning from my students digital art, right? So this is my digital art practice, but then I'm like bringing my old other practice back into it. But these are all flowers found in Virginia. My dad told me he used to ride horses. And so I like took all these flowers and stuff from Virginia, and I created these mojo figures, which are like, if you look at this one, mojo figures are basically like, imagine you have like talismans or gree-grees that people wear for protection, to bring money, drawing energy, etc. But they're people. So I made them
Mm-hmm.
into like people that filled with herbs and flowers and stuff. So this is like kind of the conversation I started surrounding my ancestral history. Um, yeah, with him. And so I started making a lot of pieces kind of looking at his history. So these are flowers in Virginia. Folks ain't ready for souls yet. see if I have another one back here. So there's Souls Anchored. So these are like some of my newer pieces are having that conversation of like my dad's upbringing. They're like kind of love letters to him in a way, which is really sweet when you think about it. But it's just kind of like a conversation that I'm like, oh, this isn't anything to be kind of ashamed of. Like, this is a source of power for you, you know? So, yeah.
So it's deep when I know doing these conversations with people that I know well, and like in my mind, like I want to go deeper to some extent because I know your relationship with your daddy.
Yeah.
And you know, the older sister Amber, friend of Elana for years, wants to go, you know, diving into it, but I'm like, no, you will not be bringing up, you know. So I'm like, in my mind, I'm gonna like pin that, and like we gonna have to go back to that later. Not in a, you know me, not in a bad way, but like just like excavation, you know, like that we sometimes do when we, you know. And but I will say that I love it. It does make the work more meaningful, if that makes sense. And not that your work has value, period, right? But it makes me think about how people invest in our work. And in doing so, it sometimes means that they also take the time and invest in our lives, you know, with finding out more information about us. Because it can help you to value and to perceive the work differently. So, and it's a wonderful feeling, you know?
Yes.
And that's all off, you know, on a little bit of a tangent, but sometimes that works too. So I am realizing that one of the things that, although I think I'm going to do this in another form because eventually I'll have a conversation with you about a real longer version of this conversation about bomba. But I wanted to bring it up because it's like what we're doing, one of the things that we're doing, you know.
Yes.
And so I have this project. It's called Reclamando Quién Soy and Reclamando Cuál es la Mía. And it's claiming who I am and claiming what is mine. And in doing so, it's about bomba. And bomba is an Afro-Puerto Rican dance, culture, spiritual movement, as I like to refer to it sometimes. And I'm learning about it based on my personal heritage. And then I've invited people to do this with me. My mom is doing it with me. Elana and her mom are doing it with me. And then two other people, a curator and another Afro-Puerto Rican individual. And we're learning this dance together. And I wanted to ask you, like, so for example, last class, like when I finally got home on Sunday, last class, I looked at the video a couple times and it was amazing to see everybody, like how they're relating to the bate. The bate is basically the dance floor in between the dancers, and then you have the drummers, and sometimes you have the musicians that are singing in the call and response. And we're learning how to navigate the bate. And it was so beautiful. It's like beautiful flaws in all, if that makes any sense, because you could see the growth in all of us, right? I know we talked about that briefly afterwards, but I want to ask you, so how did it feel?
It felt good. I had been missing dance class. I used to like be pressed. So African dance Tuesday, Thursday, 2 classes on Thursday, maybe 1 on Sunday. I used to be going for it when my money was different then. Yeah, my rent was a lot cheaper. I was at home with mom, so it was a different.
So you could do those things,
I
yes.
could do all these things, right? Wasn't asking for cell phone money.
That's funny.
Internet, I'm just okay, but
I know what you're talking about. That's funny.
but it was different, and so going to Bamba made me excited to go back to African dance class, because it felt so familiar to me. It was like a sense of, it was the joy I remembered. I'd be in dance class smiling from ear to ear, so happy. Like, I mean, I'm vibrating talking about it, like happy brain energy. Like, it was something that brings me so much joy.
Mm-hmm.
And so how did it feel? It felt like joy. It felt like what love is supposed to feel like, it felt like peace. It felt like safety, even in all the flaws or the missteps. It was beautiful. It was, I think, everything I could have asked for and more. And it was exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you do things like this, I don't want to say that you learn something new about yourself, because I'm sure that's true too. But you remember something about yourself. It's not like a learning, it's a remembering.
It is. It's almost like a constituting. It's like, oh, this is me. I'm learning to be more of me. I'm learning to be resonant of what I am deserving, what I am, what's already within me, And that if you remember me saying, and when my mom gave me the position to leave, right, the ending position, I was like, no, I'm not ready. It was almost like I had to be in that bate. I had to be in that space, realize, okay, yes, I forgot, what the options I had in relation to the different, variations of the dance that I could do. But I just had to feel like I can mess up here and still know that I'm fucking deserving to be here. This is my space. And I want to feel all of it, So, and I think that in itself is empowering. But it wasn't just that, but I could also see the empowerment happening for the other people. And my mom, and I've seen my mom. My mom has always loved to dance. Especially, I remember looking at my mother as a young child and looking at her and thinking, sometimes being embarrassed because your mama out there showing herself, doing, oh. But then also thinking, like, that freeness in her, wanting to have some of that. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so being able to see that again, because capitalism, to me, it's like capitalism sucks that out of you sometimes. And or life situations, it can suck them out of you. If you're not careful, it can suck it out of you. And so seeing my mother be free like that and navigating, space in that way, that's priceless.
Mm-hmm. And I'll say it's new for me to see my mom in a dance class. Like, this is probably the longest form thing I've ever done with my mom, ever.
Really?
We don't do stuff. I talk to her on the phone, but beyond that, we don't. This is like the first time we've done something together, in this format. That was interesting.
Wow. Well, it feels like from my perspective, it feels like both of you are enjoying this, I hope that this is going to be impactful.
I think she's already, immediately I thought she's already evolved just from this experience, because she refers to herself as an introvert, which is weird. So I'm like, how are you introverted?
Yeah. Hello.
But it's funny. I guess I do that too.
Introvert. Are you serious? Your mama?
Yeah. So she's like, I'm introverted. I'm shy. And so she doesn't publicly dance. So this is, I think, maybe her first dance class. I don't want to say ever, but I've never seen her in a dance class since I've known her. And so she's being brave in a way that she was saying that she gets nervous public speaking. So you're seeing her be brave in a way she hasn't had to be before. And I think that's really beautiful to see her like have that power. I'm in a meeting. Yeah. Bye guys. I'm in a meeting. Yes. They hungry. They like, we need to make art. We got an art show coming up. Why are you not letting us in? Yeah. I had like 4 students come up to the door. It's like, oh, she's talking. Like, yes.
Well, it won't be too much longer, but we're almost there. God, you made me forget what I was gonna ask you. So tell us about, real quick. So tell us about your current experience teaching at.
I'm in a meeting. Yeah, no. Yeah, no. No, you can't come in. Okay, bye.
Yeah, I feel bad now. That's like the 5th one.
Yes.
I know. So like 10 minutes more. What do you want to share about your experience teaching at Duke Ellington?
Every year, Mr. E says that when you don't know yourself to be something until you act that action. You don't know yourself to be kind until you are kind to someone. You don't know yourself to be a certain way until it is mirrored back to you or you are giving that action. Being at Ellington has transformed who I am. It's made me a better artist. It's made me a more confident human. The version of me from like 20-minute meeting, sorry, I'm in a meeting. So the people, I have advisory right now. So they're like, but I'll wrap it up. So the version of me that was before I got here and who I am now is different. Like I am confident, I'm powerful, I am like navigating the space, I'm in a meeting. Give me a moment. Look at them sighing. I am a completely different version of myself. And I command like an authority. Like when I first started, my students were like hella disrespectful. I'm not gonna hold you.
I remember that. I remember like talking through that. Yes.
Hella disrespectful, not nice humans. And this year is night and day. Like there's a little bit of that last year, but this year is night and day. Like they try you a little bit, but it's very much like, no, do what I said, move like this, boom, boom, boom. And so being co-chair and I guess stepping into like the chair position, like actually running the department, I have like not little kids, but I have teenagers like wearing tall boots like I do, having natural hair, being like, Miss Casey, I want to have solo shows like you. I want to like be like, you're the example for what an art career looks like. To me, you're the first professional artist I've met. They're like how you are, you know?
Yes, it's beautiful. I see it. I see the continuum, you know? And that's yeah.
So they're looking at me like that, and I can't be the version of myself that was fractured and disrespected. I can't be the version of myself that allowed that type of energy at this stage because I'm literally someone's role model. And I have to walk around. And so I walk around and I think, would I follow me? Would I want me to be my teacher?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I think about that, then no, I can't settle for misogyny. No, I can't like fall victim to the patriarchy. Yes, I have to speak up when things aren't correct. Yes, I have to be like, do this, make it happen, boom. Like I have to navigate the art world, people, like contracts or whatever, with this knowing and this value in my self-worth that I hadn't had to do or known how to do in my early 20s, like the way I was treated in my early 20s versus how I may be treated now is night and day. Like I look at someone, I'm like, that's disrespectful. I call it out and I move on.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a version of me that allowed that type of disrespect before. So that's how Ellington has shaped me. It's made me the version of myself that I've always wanted to be and hope to be.
That's wonderful. Okay, so my last question is, speaking, of that continuum, what have you done through Duke Ellington that is going to be impactful for your students for like years to come, beyond the basic, curriculum based things? Talk about like some of the initiatives that you have initiated.
So I'm coming on the heels of Peggy Cooper K-Fritz, the co-founder of Duke Ellington School of the Arts, major arts patron for Black artists. And so they're funny. They like dancing outside the window. and so a major patron for Black art. And she was connected to studio. I'm in a meeting. I'm sorry. It's good. Yes.
All of us feeling guilty. Damn. Almost done, y'all.
Okay, so okay. Can I let them in and then just be like, be quiet and I'll finish? So give me one moment. I'm gonna let them in. So I'm mute. Okay, I've let them in. They said they'll be super quiet. They won't say a word.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I forgot what you were saying. Oh, the projects, the initiatives that you are putting in place.
So we're co-founded with Peggy Cooper K-Fritz. And so, Peggy Cooper K-Fritz was the co-founder of Duke Ellington School of the Arts, and along with Mike Malone. And so she was a major arts patron for African American art particularly. And so she's collected people like Shabalala Self, Kehinde Wiley, Nina Chanel Abney. And she is also a big supporter of the Studio Museum in Harlem. And so big friends, Thelma Golden, Jack Shainman Gallery, big supporter of Titus Kaphar, Next Haven. And so what I've done is I've leveraged that connection. So her in regards to like, who are the people she's worked with? How can I open and build bridges for my students? How can I build these bridges for my students so that it's a matter of them walking into those rooms? So the rooms that I had to earn myself in is a matter of like, now you have this, so you can just literally walk in. So they're coming to visit, like we just got back from the Studio Museum in Harlem like a month ago, and they're hanging with the artists in residence, which they don't know that's a huge deal yet, but Studio Museum is like one of the most exclusive Black arts residencies in the nation, if not internationally. And so they're like hanging out. They're getting their emails, like they're connecting with artists who are rising, if not at like the top of their career, and only rising to the blue chip status of artistry. And they're getting artist talks from residents from Next Haven, Titus Kaphar. Like these are like major artists in national museums, internationally shown, selling works for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they care about them just off the strength of the work Peggy has done. And so I think part of my job is to make sure that they have that access, because that access isn't easily granted. And I want to make sure I can help support them and open doors for them, because they are just as good as like the people out here, if not better. Like they put in a lot of 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 euros to shame. You know what I mean? Like, so So it's important for me to know, for them to know that their skill and their merit and their power is recognized. And if I can like help make that path easier for them as they walk through, then that's what I'm gonna do.
All right. And so it is. So Elana Casey,
Mhm.
share with us where, if people want to, or when people want to learn more about your work, where do they go?
So, and I guess I could stop sharing my screen, but they can go to my website, ashaelanacasey.com. They can go to my Instagram, ashaelanacasey.com. They can go to, I have a Twitter, Asha, the same thing, like, so it's all my name.
So spell it out.
So AShaElana So they can find me in all those places. My Instagram is most current, like my new work, in progress work, stuff like that.
All right. So thank you very much, Miss Elana. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Thank you for doing this. This is so cool.
Thank you.